Hey, what's up, guys? Nate here with Phillip once again on episode 19. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm pretty excited. I've really been can't wait to record this episode.
Yeah,
this one's pretty exciting to us.
Like more of a fun episode this time.
Yep.
Everyone knows the hype around the alt art cards, and we are doing our top 5 favorite alt art cards of all time. Now, before we get started on, this will be at the beginning of the main topic, but we both have kind of different definitions, I would say, for alt art cards, but we'll cover those a little later. But we're going to do top 5 and then maybe some honorable mentions. And then after the honorable mentions, maybe some exceptions. I, for one, have a couple older cards that had alternate art technically, but, the wording on that's a little different. But, yeah, we'll talk about it then, though. So, yeah. What's been new? What you been working on with your collection and everything?
Well, yeah, I knocked out a few binder set cards. It was really meant to be like grocery shopping, or not grocery shopping, but kind of Christmas shopping. I was thinking about making some sort of surprise, personalized mosaic or something to go with some photos featuring the Pokemon Cyndaquil and the Pokemon Roselia. So basically, my cat's named after Cyndaquil, as I mentioned before, and also there is my girlfriend's cat, which is actually named after Roselia. So I was going to include those two somehow. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do just yet, but I think I'll think of something. And also, I end up getting a little bit of personal binder set cards when I did that. So I was like, well, I mean, I need to get free shipping on these places or else it's going to kill you. So yeah. I went ahead and ended up turning what was going to be like a $20 thing into almost a $200 thing. But hey, that happens to all of us, right?
Hey, good thing that shipping didn't kill you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was making sure, okay, I shopped by each store, like, okay, I had that $5. Okay, so I can go to an Air store since they don't have the things that I need. And that kind of turned into like, okay, I know these cards I need. So I ended up spending, I think it was like 6 or so hours. You probably hear my cat. He's just kind of having a field day over here, but
a little bit, but not too much.
But I ended up spending like 8 hours trying to make a list for all the binder set cards that I was missing, and I have some goals prioritized. I know what I'm going for this winter and for my birthday, which is a few months after Christmas, and it's over $5,000 for the binder set cards. Most of that, though, is the shinings, and I'm going for lightly played mostly. And I want to do that just because I know eventually I'm going to want that condition, and I don't want to be having to resell those items. So,
yeah, it's pretty expensive when you add it up.
So it definitely does. It definitely gets pretty expensive. That's why I'm talking about prioritization. One thing I couldn't help but notice as I was going through these stores doing this budget is compared to last year, there's not the same amount of vendors on TCG Player that are selling these cards I'm looking for, most notably with Neo Destiny and to a lesser extent with Neo Rev. And I find that semi-alarming as a collector. It's not like enough to like, oh man, the hurricane's coming or something like that. You just start hanging the bells to like warn people. It wasn't that bad, but in 2 years time, I do not know where it's going to be. So a lot of the big hitters, and even the Neo Genesis with Lugia, I'm just going to go ahead and knock off a lot of these big hitters off by February, just so it's done and out of the way, and just start buying the cheaper ones. We've mentioned this before, but sometimes you just have to prioritize, and this is one of those situations where you must prioritize because there is growing signs that these cards, especially in lightly played condition, could increase fairly easy. I'm not talking like to the stratosphere, but I am talking potentially 30-40% increase within the next year or two, and it's only going to keep on going up. So I better get on these as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's kind of what my question is related to later on in the episode. So I'll save my 2 cents for there. But yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about for sure. I've been kind of doing the same, but yeah, we'll talk about that a little later. So adds up extremely quickly, and if you're trying to complete base set or old stuff, I mean, you might be paying like $5 to $20 for a nice card, but some of those Neo cards, they're holding strong. I mean, granted, some of them are only like 40, 50, but if you want a true lightly played card, then that adds up real quick. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, for our news section, we want to do a little update on the Charizard UPC as well as the stuff for VSTAR Universe coming out, which is going to be our Crown Zenith, the last set before Scarlet Violet. We got some major spoilers, and the cards are crazy. But
Yes, they
yeah, which
are.
one you want to hit on first?
Let's go ahead and talk about the Charizard UPC, since I think that's what a lot of people, and especially people in the hobby, have been hyped about, and that's been most of the talk. So,
For sure. Yeah, so Charizard UPC came out this past week, and it's pretty solid product. You got the Charizard promos. Everyone was hyped about those. They are, they're promos, but they're not really an alt art. They're just a, unique art. But yeah, the alt art style for sure. And a lot of these things were made. So we were talking about how it seems like the, print run of these things was just massive. And I don't know about you, but just looking around online, like nobody's having problem getting them. People who've like overbought and are trying to flip them are selling them for like 125, just to, offload them. But yeah, seems like Pokemon just said, hold my beer and printed as much of this as possible, and they win. This is everywhere. Everyone seems to have one. People are finding them on the store shelves pretty early. And yeah, it doesn't seem like there's much problem trying to find these things.
no, in fact, I was curious, so I tried it out because I knew earlier, I think it was today or yesterday, Target relisted the UPC on their store, and I put it in my cart and everything, and it still said they had quantities, so that should tell you everything you need to know. We're a week after the initial release, and Target still has these UPCs in distribution or in their inventory still. So that should tell you how much there is. And you know what? On eBay, I couldn't help but look. There are some selling for close to MSRP plus 15 shipping. $50 shipping is about 140. I was pretty close to my estimate. I would say.
Yeah,
About 150 shipped on eBay is what I said. I said maybe a little bit lower, but I feel like I was pretty close.
but you're over now.
Yeah, technically. I mean, it is going to go under. There was one that sold for, well, it was $99 on eBay within 25 shipping, so they basically paid MSRP.
Yeah.
So they're actually taking a small hit, whoever sold that, because they sold on eBay. So, but the quality of the promos are atrocious from what most people have shown. At the same time, there's going to be so many of these opened that I still don't think a 10 will cost very much down the line. I'm not saying it's going to be cheap. I'm just saying maybe 300 is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think they'll be cheaper than that, maybe like
Yeah.
200, 250. I mean, you look at the most graded card ever, and it's a Charizard V from Champion's Path. you know, so many people graded that card, and it still holds value. It's like $40 or something like that, I think.
Well, I
Just
think that might have to do with
because,
its rarity, but
yeah. Well, I'm talking about the promo that's in the
oh, okay.
ETBs. So, yeah, I mean, people just want the card because it's iconic. It's Charizard, and it is iconic at this point, even though it's not rare, the most graded card of all time. That was the point and the product that people came back into the hobby, peak craze when it was first taken off. And, that card means something. It means something to me. Like, I see that card and, I go right back to, man, I remember when people were just trying to open Champion's Path and it was just such a bad set to open. And, I just go right back.
Yeah.
to those early hype days, and yeah, that says something. So
Yeah, I used to actually still have one of those. I actually didn't send it in our last bulk shipment, but I did have a very, very great quality Charizard V from the Champions Path boxes that I honestly think could be like a BBGS 10. It was that crisp. But yeah, I didn't hold it off the PSA just because one, it's not even worth my money to grade it right now. It seems like, but
yeah,
two, I think I have a really good one. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like I can't get rid of those cards because I have so many memories to whenever I got back into this hobby, and it just reminds me how lucky I got with Champions Path and how everything just kind of started from there. It seemed like so.
yep. There's a lot of people like that, and pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, I bought two Charizard UPCs. I almost just want to open up my other one. You know, I love them as like storage boxes. Um, I actually went through my collection, all my like sealed stuff, and I actually, what do you want to call it? I pulled out all the sealed because I've talked about this before. I think I'm finally going to sell a good chunk of the sealed stuff because I'm really working towards some specific cards right now. You know, the binders like you're doing, that's, one aspect of it. But I'm really wanting to nail down these promos. I'm sitting pretty, cash heavy right now, and that's just adding to it. And it's a great time to buy. These are the times that, you really need to be buying if you're really in this long term. So it's kind of a win-win for me doing a little selling, converting some tens into nines for the personal collection because I don't like holding on to tens, and turning that money into expanding the collection once again. But I opened up one of my Charizard UPCs and I immediately sold promos for like $60. They were going for like 20 to 25 a piece, and I just said $60, take it. And I think they're, right at $20 a piece right now. This
Yeah,
was like a couple days ago. So, I mean, I think they'll be like 15 or so, but
yeah,
mine were off center as well, which you could see that in the pictures. And, it seems like $20 a piece is the going rate, but I do want those graded. And I don't know if I want like a CGC 9.5 or a PSA 9, but at some point I want those graded. So all I'm going to do is buy those back already graded in the grades that I want like 6 months from now. Or, it might be longer than that because I don't know how many people are actually sending the card in, you know, but people do have access to the $18 tier still. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they dip to. And yeah, I'm paying
yeah,
more to just buy them graded, but I don't want to do all the extra work. These are particularly really hard, which, we don't know yet, but it's obvious they're going to be hard to grade.
yeah.
And when you get in that off center, it could be like an 8.59 or a 9.5. It's like a weird gray area with centering plus all the other factors. So it's like I don't want to grade it and then sell it and then buy another copy. Like I'll just wait a little bit and just buy
And
them.
there's I just say there's so many people that has the same idea with the same plays with this card. Like, oh, let me buy 10s, 20, whatever of these sets and send them in to be like the best ones in to be graded. And if everybody has that same mindset, there's going to be a lot of this card graded. So I think if you want to wait like a year from now, like this time next year, I think you can get a really good deal for at least what if you want all three of them, you can get a great deal for all three of them. I think in a 9 or a 10. I do think the alt art with the Venusaur or the art with the Venusaur and the Charizard, I could see those being around $200 for a little bit. I mean, like you were saying, like maybe 300 might be too high, as you also said, and that very well could be the case. But at the same time, I also don't see the tens being as cheap as other Charizard or other promos. So it is going to be interesting to see where it will fall because you can be definitely more right, where it's more like maybe 100, 125 for a 10, and that might not be too far off.
Yeah. And even if it's $100 for a 10, like I don't think they'll be below that. Like the artwork and being Charizard, it's too good to like
Yeah,
drop much lower than $100 for a PSA 10. But I could
I
see
agree.
250 to I could see 150 to 250 somewhere in there based on how many there are. But yeah, so many people bought this. I think I mentioned this before that at my GameStop, I was the only person who ordered one, and they said there was at least 10 or more people who also pre-ordered the product, and every single body like that walked into that store and pre-ordered this product besides me got the max quantity of 5.
Got him.
So yeah, they're sitting on those, and they'll be sitting on them for a while, I
I
think.
wonder if
But
they paid in full. I wonder if they paid in full, or how much did they pay? They'll be able, the GameStop will be able to get rid of those eventually, without a doubt. But it'd be interesting. Like, did they pay what is it? 120 times six? Was it 740? Or no, 720 plus tax? I mean, that's a lot of money to put on something like this. And maybe the people, if they did pay that much up front, which I actually doubt most did, maybe you should start rethinking some of your strategies. But then again, a lot of those people were probably trying to scalp too, and it didn't work out for them at all.
yeah, I hate to say it, but you're gonna have to learn somehow. And yeah, they kind of had it coming. So sorry if you're one of those people, but Pokemon, they make money by printing cardboard. So if the demand's there, even if that demand is scalpers, they're gonna print it. And
Hmm.
so, granted, the situation we were in, a year and a half ago was very unique, where the demand exceeded, but they stepped up to the plate. And I can't help but notice, but all summer long, like at the beginning of the summer, that was the first time when products felt like it was back to normal or somewhat stocked. That's when the market was kind of starting its downturn and there was actual products available at Target most times I went. Granted, the shelves wouldn't be full or anything, but the last 3 months, like middle of summer till Charizard UPC, it was like the pandemic hype all over again. I didn't see a single Pokemon product going in Target like multiple times, and like I was kind of going in like key times, which I wasn't like going there for Pokemon, but I always keep an eye out. And my theory is that they were just pumping this Charizard UPC like off the printers like no other for like months. And it makes sense now that we see how much product is there. But
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm not sure if these packs that I received were printed within the same year, because obviously some of them, there was like a Vivid Voltage, and I think there was a Targetness Ablaze. So obviously those packs were a little bit older. But I will say this: the quality of the cards, not just the promos, because the promos, two of them were meh, one was okay. Like, one is probably it's like 8, 9, 10. That, or like, those, that's probably potentially what my promos were. So not bad compared to what I saw a lot of other people get. But the quality of the packs that I opened, packs that include Brilliant Stars, Fusion Strike, and Evolving Skies, was the worst quality I have ever seen. I'm not talking about off-center products like I've mentioned before with Battle Styles. I am talking about creases, dents, massive dents, and dents. Like, you could see the cardboard was somehow scrunched up and bent on either like one of the layers. Every card was like this. It was atrocious,
yeah, the pictures
and
you sent me, they were pretty bad.
it was so bad. And I'm just like, why do I continue to open modern English? Why do I do this to myself? And I mean, there is sometimes where I do enjoy opening English product, and it's just fun to open. And sometimes it's a little easier to get it than Japanese product. And you know what? I'm just gonna have the patience, and I'm gonna, maybe one time a year I'm gonna open English product. That's kind of where I'm going at this point. We'll mention more here in a second, but I already put myself in the lottery for the Pokemon Center Japan VSTAR Universe, for a box, and I might even buy a box on eBay just to make sure I have it. You know what? I won't regret it because it's some of the opening Japanese booster boxes is some of the best experience I've ever had in this hobby.
Yep. Speaking of, if you are listening to this, I might be selling my EV Heroes special box. So if you're in to buy like the most hyped product of all time at this current time of day, hit me up. So I'm
And
sure
I
there's going to
also,
be another reprint for those. So keep that in
yeah,
mind.
absolutely will be. And I just wanted to say, if you do, I'm not criticizing folks that want to open modern English product. I totally get it. I understand. It's fun. It's enjoyable as long as you do it in the right amount. And I'm not criticizing anybody that does enjoy that. I'm not. It's just me as a consumer. I have personally decided that I have enough for what I consider, I guess, for lack of better words, consumer abuse, taking advantage of consumerism in this country. I don't know how you want to word it, but whenever I spend money that I've worked to earn, I do not like when the quality of said cards is so atrocious. I might as well have just bought bulk online.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have a better experience when I'm spending my money. Like we don't go spending $100 and at McDonald's, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have a very good experience if you spend $100 at McDonald's. Whereas if you spend $100 at a much nicer restaurant, you're going to enjoy yourself. You're going to enjoy the whole experience, everything about it.
Yep.
Same concept, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I mean, English has been like that. I feel like since Battle Styles, when they really started
Yeah,
ramping up production. I mean that seems to be where it started because I mean it was bad, not as good as English or Japanese, but I mean, yeah, I took a picture and posted on my Instagram of the Pokemon Go set, and everything that I opened after that was the same. But if you literally take the stack of cards that you open, hold them in a stack, I mean there's like ridges, like they're all different sizes and different colors even. I mean, it's like a different card cut for the type of rarity or something. But yeah, it's just pretty bad for the quality. But yeah, we'll see what's going on in the future with that. But they're just printing so much now. I just think they're just trying to get it out there. I mean, genuinely, the common folk don't really pay attention or don't care about that. So
yeah. You say you don't ever see cards on the shelves, and I'll say usually whenever I go in, I'm not saying it's fully stocked, but there is still stock on the shelves. But yeah, it has been picked through, and you can tell that. And I think if we're at this time, and if we're around, we're both kind of saying this same thing around in the city. I mean, I think you have to wonder just how high it is the demand. So how many people are in it? That just shows you how many people are still interested in this hobby, and that this hobby has never been healthier in terms of interest.
yeah, yeah, I can't wait to see where it goes. And yeah, if you are sitting on a bunch of Charizard EPCs, I mean, yeah, it's just hard to tell, what to do with them. I think they're going to be pretty cheap for a while. In the long run, like yeah, obviously people are going to want those promos for a while, but I mean, there's way better stuff to buy, and yeah, those promos are just going to be pretty cheap. It does have Evolving Skies packs in there though, so there's something, but yeah, I don't know. It's
And Brilliant
just
Stars with the character rares too.
yeah, yeah, it's a solid set of or a solid group of sets, in the box for sure. And if you're opening them for fun, go for it. I think opening them for fun now and in the future, is a win. It's a really cool product. But I was just thinking about like, there's so many people holding this box, and then there's so many people like who are going to sell it in the future. And yeah, they'll make money because it's Charizard, but like I said, there's better things. But it would
Absolutely.
almost not be worth opening this product at some point. Like I don't think it's worth opening now unless it's just strictly for fun
Yeah.
because you get such a small sample size of the packs. Like the pools seem really crappy, but of course, if you buy one lottery ticket and you're trying to pull, an alt art or win on a lottery ticket that's 1 out of 1,000, and you just buy like 2 tickets, like, yeah, it's extremely unlikely. So if you hit something, great. It's pretty insane, but yeah, just such a random small sample size of each set. I mean, odds of pulling something are, pretty slim. You're more likely to like strike out essentially.
Just take a look
Yeah.
at my pulls from my 16 packs. It's not good. I'll give you a little hint.
Yeah. Like
I
it.
had a Starmie V, and it was like in Steel XV, and then it was a character rare with Alcremie. Those were that was the best of the best for my 16 packs I opened.
Yeah, pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh,
yeah, speaking of cool cards, though, guess we should talk about the VSTAR universe that's revealed. That's
yeah, I'm pretty.
pretty solid.
Yeah, these are incredible. There is no other way to describe this. It doesn't matter if you are a vintage exclusive collector, or if you're a modern collector, if you're a combination of both, like most of us are. These cards hit everything right when it comes to the art. That isn't even debatable. I mean, you can debate which ones you like more, which ones are the worst art. But as far as them just being phenomenal, yeah, and what's to top this all off is that this doesn't. This is just the art rares or the character equivalent rares for this set, and this doesn't even include the commons, the rares, the secret rares. This is going to be an incredible set.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll link it below for you to check it out. Looking at the comments, there is another Radiant Charizard in the set.
This one's pretty cool though.
Yeah, this one does look
It
better than
is.
the Go set. It's like,
Yeah.
very obviously shiny and pretty up close picture of him like
Hmm.
sailing through the air in the mountains, the snowy mountains, and he just really stands out on the card. I don't get why they don't make this like a gold star look, like have his wings kind of pop off the border of the card. Like that would look so sick, but that'd probably be like too much hype. Maybe they're trying to dial it back a little bit. But yeah, we got a Radiant Charizard. Looks very cool. We have the Galarian birds, and they look cool. I think these look better than their other cards. The Moltres, I'm still kind of up in the fence about. I think I like its first card a little more, but so it's weird, right? Like we were just talking about this before the podcast, but it's like Zapdos and Moltres get like normal cards, like normal arts or normal art styles. And for some reason, Moltres and Chilling Rain, it got the very symmetrical pose with the moon in the background. Like it was almost like a completely separate art style from the other two. And we're seeing that again in the V Star universe. Like Zapdos is like chasing down a Dotrio. Articuno's like in the woods, like opening its wings. And then Moltres is kind of like there's a moon like perfectly centered in the background, or the sun that's being covered up by the moon, and there's like mountains and a couple trees at the bottom, but
Hmm.
Moltres is like upside down with his wings, his tail, and his legs spread open, like a really weird pose upside down, like almost like in an X shape. So it's a really symmetrical card, and it's just kind of weird to me that Moltres, maybe it's hard to make him look cool or something, I don't know, but he's his art stands out, to be much more unique than the other two in all prints, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, I would say we kind of both think the Raikou is one of the best, and I think it is, but that doesn't mean that there aren't equally amazing cards. Like the Mew card, for example. I think the Mew is definitely one of the better Mew cards we've seen in the last few years. And even the Samurott, that one just uniquely cool. Like the menacing aura. I don't know. There's some sort of anime vibe that's just coming out from it. Like they kind of had some similar artistic aesthetics when it comes to like Dragon Ball Z in some ways, like on Planet Namek, like early Dragon Ball Z, and that's what that reminds me of. or just like some sort of power showing like powers being created around this being, and it's very menacing looking, and it's just amazing. Um, I also like the Altaria. I don't know what it is, but I like the Altaria. I think it's because it's the artist. The artist has like he's been doing this style since the very beginning. Since I don't know, there's a Dratini with this style in one of the earlier sets, and but this one just looks unique in its own way. It just looks strange, but it looks so awesomely strange.
Yeah. We are getting the Charizard VSTAR from the UPC and also the Mewtwo counterpart, which is, if you look at the picture of that, Mewtwo is like loading up a gyro ball, it looks like. Charizard's looking down, and on the Mewtwo card, it's from Mewtwo's perspective looking up. So, very cool. And, I like my Japanese, and this is the rarer version, so I'm probably going to get this one in a 9 and not the UPC. So I'd like to see them print the V and the V Max in this set too, so I could just buy all 3 of the UPC promos like in the Japanese equivalent. So I just think they look cooler and easier to grade and all that. But we haven't seen those yet, just the V Star.
Yeah,
So
and I also wanted to comment how much I love Ditto, the
yeah,
Ditto one. And that one I thought was like it was a Nummel card. I thought when I first saw it with just Ditto photobombing, if you will, all of the other Nummels, but no, it's an actual Ditto card with just a field of grazing Nummels. How amazing is that? That is awesome. That is 100% a fan favor, and that is much appreciated. Absolutely.
I feel like they did justice to like all art styles. Like you have some cards that are really simple art style, like Altaria. Then you have like Deontay, that's like a really cool art, but like very centered and symmetrical. You have some different angles like Absol, which is like the more modern style of art with Pokemon, which I don't really care for. Then you have like these crazy over the top arts like Samurai, and yeah, it's just a wide range. That's just really cool. And a lot of like new artists too. So
Yeah, a lot of these artists, I mean, the Shinji Kanda, but but yeah, that Raikou one, I'm looking at it right now again, and it reminds me so much of like the Flash, like speed traveling, going through the Speed Force. That's what it reminds me of, and the aesthetic is just breathtaking, honestly. I haven't had a reaction like this to a card, I think, since I saw the Altar Umbreon.
yeah. And usually like I don't really get into the hype, and I have a really particular like art style that I like, but when I look at this set, it's like, man, I want the Mewtwo, Charizard, Manaphy. Like I love Manaphy. The Mew one is pretty cool. I mean, going back to the ones that they showed recently, like Charizard, yeah, Raikou is a must. Like that's probably the coolest looking card.
Suicune's pretty solid. I feel like if you're getting two, you might as well get the third.
Yeah,
That's kind of how I see it. Like it feels like like kind of like with hit the birds, like
I don't
the
like the Entei over the Suicune though. Like
really.
I like the Suicune, but his pose is a little weird to me. And then the Entei, like I don't like at all. It looks like kind of a cheap drawing, honestly, to me. And then it looks like Entei himself looks like a sticker. Like he's like a different art style than the card itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just
Yeah,
weird.
I'm gonna say there's some beautiful color going on with these birds, of lots of beautiful color, but like for example, the Galarian Articuno just kind of forgettable. But I mean, the color is incredible, but the art itself, I feel like, is kind of meh.
Yeah.
But as a whole, though, there's a lot of cards that I'm seeing already, like the Miltank. I'll have to get the Ditto, the Raikou, the Mew, the Charizard, probably even the Suicune, and I think the Samurai. Like, there's already, and even the Altaria. Like, there's already like 10 cards I already want from the set, which is why I decided that I'm buying it. there's enough cards that I know I already want that I'm just going to buy a few boxes and enjoy opening it and see what I get. So I'm really excited for this set.
Yeah. One other thing I want to touch on, they with this set have announced like their new rarity tier kind of. And so essentially, we've had alt arts, right? And that's been the ultimate chase. Well, this they're including new art rares and super art rare cards. So anything with like an art rare is going to be labeled AR. And to me, it's kind of like the character rare. So it's like a rare card with a special art, like a full art. So those are going to be AR. And at the bottom, they're actually secret rares. So like Zapdos, for instance, that I have up, it's like 188 out of 172 AR. So that's kind of cool that they put that distinction. And then the special arts, which I see as like the alt arts, they are labeled SARs. So special art rares. So is the SAR special art rare going to be the new alt art? Or is this whole thing going to be like the trainer gallery and the SARs are going to be a little special and then they're going to have alt arts on top of this? So I don't really see that happening because, like, these seem like alt arts. So I think this is just the new way they're going. But yeah, that makes me think like this. This episode's perfect because the alt arts might be done for as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this last set that came out might be the last we see, and then going into this one, they're going to be labeled as special arts. So we're doing this episode pretty much at the end of the alt art era, but it's not the end of alt arts technically themselves. They're just going to be called something different.
Alt
And
arts are absolutely going to be staying. So yeah, it makes
yeah,
sense, like what you're saying, that they're going to be rebranding it, and I think that's pretty accurate. I
yeah,
thought these were going to be. I didn't even notice the. It was like even the. I thought the ARs were included in the set, within the set, but this is after the set. If that
yeah.
makes sense, like it. So I didn't even include that. Like for example, the Moltres is 190 out of 172. So wouldn't that mean that that's also a secret rare, but we're going to have another rare even beyond that? Because I don't know about with the Japanese, but I know with the English, I think it was like for character rares, like for 1 and 4. I haven't opened Japanese since EV Heroes, so they've changed some things since then with the character rares.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to have it. But like the Radiant Charizard, it's a normal set card. So I think you're going to have the normal set cards. And then you might have like, versions. Like you might have a mill tank. And then you have a AR mill tank. And you might have a NTV. And then you're going to have, the art rare NTV as a, you know, secret rare. So it's just weird. There's going to be like equivalents. But maybe this is how they're going to have things laid out, for going into Scarlet and Violet sets. So makes sense
Well,
they're
it's
going to try it.
well, to say what's interesting is how huge this set is. I guess the trainer gallery with the 243, or the trainer gallery that they've shown goes to 243. So this set's going to be a 250 card set with, it looks like, potentially a quarter of that being exclusively secret rares, and this is just the Japanese set. Usually with English, they like to blend a few sets too. So I can only imagine how big the English set will be. We're talking a 300 card set potentially,
Well,
unless they split up some of the cards for other sets. But I don't see that
since it's
happening
being
because
a since it's a special set though, usually they are pretty close, bringing that 1-to-1 over, kind of like they did with Pokemon Go. It was more like a special set, so it was like a 1-to-1 crossover, kind of like they did with like Shining Fates and stuff like that. They make some tweaks where they like take out some cards and make like special English products, but usually it's like we only see the collision of two sets on like a normal set, but it's still massive either way. They're just getting. I feel
well,
bad for
that
like
means
people who
it's
like collect the sets which kind of felt bad for him for a while now because like a small set is like 200 cards, it seems.
Yeah, this set's going to have a lot of secret rares, and it's going to be interesting because that Raikou, from what they've shown, might be the Jace card of the set, like the Umbreon. And if that Raikou is anything like the Umbreon is in the Japanese EV Heroes, then you're looking at a very expensive card out the gate for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would love to pull it, but something tells me because that one's an SAR, isn't it? Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
the dogs are.
That's gonna be a very high pull rate. I mean, low pull rate. I'll rephrase it. It's gonna be difficult to pull that one. That card might be pricey, but
Yep, we'll see. It's going to be
yeah.
crazy. But I guess we should hop on over to the main topic. We have our top 5 alt art cards. And so, yeah, it is kind of cool we did this episode because, I mean, which we'll get into this now, I guess. So, our top 5 favorite alt art cards, we both had different definitions. So, mine was like literal, and yours was more like general, I feel. So, my definition of an alt art is, when they called it an alt art, which was battle styles. So when battle styles came out, the term alt art and the rarity alt art was established, and that lasted all the way up through Silver Tempest, which we know. So even though we just talked about all these alt arts that are coming out in, VSTAR universe, I won't consider those alt arts in the future if they stick with that. Like I'll consider them like SARs or special art rares because I'm thinking of it like literally like the term that they use to call like this specific card. But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to kind of say your definition. I know yours was like
Yeah.
more broad, like just referring to like the art style
Well, I'm
generally.
actually going ahead and trying to look up on Bulbapedia with this one as well to see the exact definition. I kind of had it written up, but essentially, there's alt arts that go back to the Charizard EX, so the XY era. Um, One in particular that I'm referring to is the XY 276 XYP.
Yeah.
If you look at it, there was technically four different Charizard EXs that were printed during that era. Now, technically, they're alt arts. And if you want to even look at it, there's also, for example, uh, the Latios and Latios GX from Team Up. There's a bunch of cards from the S&M era, like the Magikarp, Whale Roar GX as an example, the RCS Palkia Dialga Secret Rare, for example. I mean, there's a bunch of these different options. So it's this whole alt art thing wasn't exactly the first time that Pokemon has done this more in-depth artwork for higher tier rarity pull rates for cars. However, the alt arts in question that we're talking about in the Sword and Shield era were the first ones to include such difficulty pull rates. So if you're looking at tier lists, yes, alt arts are Sword and Shield era exclusive, more or less for now. But if you're looking at historically, Pokemon has done the alt art thing several generations beforehand. But
Yeah.
they've seen what their consumer base loves and they're capitalizing on it. They're expanding it for their consumers, and honestly, it's for the better. But yeah,
Yeah.
technically, alt arts, but yeah, I mean, it depends on how you want to define. So, whenever we started this, I was like, are we talking about all the Sword and Shield era? Are we going back to the Sun and Moon? Because if we're going back to XY era, the Charizard EX from the XY 276 promo, that's going to be in my top 5.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the pull rates from the Sword and Shield era. That's what we kind of agreed upon. So,
Yeah, and that's kind of why like I make the distinction is cuz like it's the rarity. Like yeah, these special art rares in the new set coming up, they might be just as rare as alt arts, so they might just, be the new alt art, just name something different. But, the pull rates could be different. So I just kind of go based off that. And maybe they are altering the pull rates. Maybe that's why they're calling them something different. But yeah, I get what you're talking about. And I had cards in mind that fit that same scenario, which, we'll talk about in the exceptions. But yeah, for instance, like Birthday Pikachu, they had a Japanese Birthday Pikachu, but then there was like a Natawaki, however you want to pronounce that, in Japan that was a different art of Birthday Pikachu, and it's actually the coolest one, I think. But yeah, if you type in like Nata, Nattawake Pikachu, it's an awesome card. And so that's technically an alt art. It's an alternate art with a different release, but it's considered like a promo, just like, any XY or numbered cards that are like 145p, like that P's for promo. But yeah, like it can be used either way. So it's gonna be cool though. So we're officially talking about the Sword and Shield, like the official like coined term alt art. So that's what the next section's for the exceptions, anything that's different. So this is going to be our top 5 of the alt arts from Sword and Shield era. And you want to start us off?
Are we doing the honorable mentions, or are we just starting off with the top 5?
Well, we can do some honorable mentions, and maybe we can do our exceptions now. Just kind of mention them briefly, and then we'll get into our top 5.
Okay,
so
that works. So one of the first ones I would like to say is it was the former belle of the ball in the Pokemon hobby, and that is the Giratina V from Lost Origin.
Nice.
That has made my honorable mentions.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid one. I mean, it was the first one, I feel like, where they said, YOLO, and just like made something weird. They used Giratina in the, whatever they call it, the other dimension, and just rolled with it. And it was a hit for sure. One
of Shinji Konda's best cards to date, and he's gotten another one already. They're really capitalizing on fans' love of that artist, and they're already having him in another alt-art or AR or whatever that they're calling it. And while I do love like the Giratina V, for me, it's cool, but because there's a lot going on with this, like there's a lot of background noise. Like it's really cool aesthetically, but there's also a lot of noise in this card. And I think that is a part of what makes it to where it can't be in the top 5. It's just like you see the Giratina, then you see this like mosaic of thing, color, shapes, whatever around it. And I know it's supposed to be, as you said, like the other dimension, but I mean aesthetically it's cool looking, but because it's just kind of like you don't know what you're looking at, I have to put it in my honorable mentions.
Yeah. I get it. I like it though. You want to just list your other ones, or want to alternate?
I can go ahead and list all of them, I guess. You had Umbreon V. Come on, like that one's good. Where he reminds me of a cat, if you will, and he's just on top of this staircase, just looking at all these other Pokemon and like eat peasants.
I have him as B tier for me.
Really?
Yeah, I don't really like the art of that one.
That one was like one of the first ones out probably for me, and I just really, really like that one. I don't know. I eventually will get some of these cards. Obviously, they're not priority because they just came out. Vintage is more of a priority, but like, yeah, that card's awesome. And another one I have, sticking with the Evolving Skies theme, is Noivern V.
Oh, the Batman one?
Yeah, the Batman one. How can you not love it?
He's in B tier for me too.
Really?
I do like it though. It might have to go up in the A.
So I'm a huge Batman fan, and you could even argue this is kind of like gargoyles, even. But the whole Batman aesthetic, I absolutely love. Batman is my favorite comic. I have dozens upon dozens, maybe even in the hundreds now of Batman comics, and huge fan. So that's why it's rated so highly for me, and I will always appreciate this card because of the symmetry and parallels to Batman.
Yeah,
Can't
it
believe
is a good
this is
one.
your B tier. B tier. Um, and then the next one would be Cella BV. I really like the aesthetic when it comes to the Cella BV. I mean, it's a mythical Pokemon, and the art around it is very mystical, with it kind of happening during during a snow. Is it? I know there's snow on the ground, but it's during a snowstorm too, as well, right? I'm pretty sure it
I
is.
think so. He's got like a little plant beside him.
Yeah, yeah. That one I really enjoy. I know you have that one in a 9.5, don't you?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there is some sort of snow, and like his aura is like circling around these trees, and it's just creating life, even though there's a snow. And there's something very whimsical about that one that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And
I don't
yeah,
really want
go
to give
ahead.
away where that one's at on my list. It is in my top five though.
Yeah, and then you don't really see a lot of hula for this one, which would be technically one of the final ones on my list. Uh, well, I mean, I could go a lot further on them, but uh, Zerora V. That one's. I think that one is underappreciated, honestly. What do you think of that one?
Uh, is that the one where he's in the snow, like
Yeah,
standing up? Yeah, it's okay.
yeah.
It's like a weird pose, and yeah, it kind of went under the radar. I feel like, but was that Chilling Rain?
It was Chilling Rain. It was probably one of the worst sets released this year. That might be why it went under the
Yeah,
radar.
yo, Chilling
But
Pain.
yeah, I think it's pretty good. I really like that one. I'm a sucker for landscapes, and if you notice a common theme with some of my favorite ones, a lot of them include a lot of landscape shots. I do landscape and architectural photography. That's kind of a hobby, and I if a card includes that, like I mentioned before, the gold cards that have like architectural and landscapes, how much I love the artwork on those cards. Same concept to me. That's a common theme with just art that I appreciate, and that's exactly how I view these cards as art, and that's why we all love them, is it not?
Yeah, yeah. Some of my honorable mentions. I have the Espeon V from EV Heroes. I say EV Heroes because I like the Japanese versions more. Where he's like chilling in the study,
Yeah.
like covering the books. Like that and Vaporeon are like my two favorite cards of the set. I don't like the VMAXs more. Like those are my two favorite artworks. Because I just generally don't like the giant VMAX, but uh, yeah, that's definitely a runner up. I love that art style.
Yeah,
And
I had that one in my A tier too. The Vaporeon.
yeah. The theme for me is more focused on the Pokemon, I think. Like I like more simple illustrations and I like the Pokemon looking cool or the Pokemon's pose more. So that's kind of my theme in mine.
Mm.
But the Gengar VMAX alt art, love that one. Came out in like a special deck in Japan.
Yep.
And yeah, that one was pretty cool. Um, Rayquaza V, not the V Max, the V where he's kind of looking backwards with the chick in the foreground. Like that one a lot. Like it way more than the V Max. I don't really get the hype with the V Max, which that
Neither do I.
yeah, you were in the same boat.
That's one of I rank that one as actually one of the lowest tiers for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that pretty much rounds up my honorable mentions. I mean, I have a couple like exceptions that we talked about. I guess I could cover those real quick. But, one of them being the birthday Pikachu from back in the day. So if you use alt art as like more of a general term, then yeah, like the Japanese not awake birthday Pikachu for sure. Um, there is a flying Pikachu with the A&A Airlines where there's like a plane in the background. You could, I guess, consider that one a special promo or an alt art. I like that one. Um, Other than that, I'm trying to think. It's hard for them to stick out to me, because I just see them as promos rather than alt arts. But I've been trying to think about it, knowing the situation. But I guess you could technically call the Charizard reprints alt arts, right? So
Well, yeah. Well, no. You're talking about like the base set Charizard Hollow.
yeah, I guess they're not alt arts; they're just different
It's the
hollows.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I was gonna say the 25th anniversary Japanese base set Charizard. I, I, I tell you what, I'm gonna die on the hill that that's the best version of base set Charizard ever. That card just looks so crazy. But yeah, I guess that doesn't technically count. But yeah, I guess that's about it. I guess I'm ready to hop into the top five.
You're ready to hop in?
Yeah.
Okay, I do just want to say a few things that um you know before I kind of go into my top five that I mentioned before how Komiya is actually one of my all-time favorite artists, and there's definitely a few others that I really like. But with him in general, he only has one alt art, and unfortunately, I hate it. Yeah, it's okay.
That's a Slow
I
King,
mean,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's okay. It's just I do not like it at all. Um, I mean, Slowking is okay as a Pokemon. He kind of has this thing with Slowbro and Slowking that he's been drawing since like Neo Destiny, and I guess they just keep on giving like I don't. He has quite a few Slowpokes of that family that he's done, and this isn't even the best Slowking artwork he's done. That might be from the Neo Destiny Slowking, honestly, but yeah, I just it's just not for me at all, and. I did have the Rayquaza, the VMAX, in the D tier.
What?
Oh. No, but most of the evolutions, Vs and VMAXs, are pretty much all in the A and B tier. There's not a bad alt art for an evolution, in my opinion. They're all solid. And I mean, they're all good. Like, can you really call one bad? I don't think you really can. Some are not as good as others, but I don't think there's one that's bad. In fact, the Jolteon Altar, I feel like it's overlooked in a lot of ways compared to other ones. But
Yeah. I do like the arts on them. It's just the big giant Pokemon is like my downside to it. But
yeah,
if I get past that, like I like the art.
I kind of like the Leafeon like that though, where he like it's like a cat playing with like a toy with
Yeah.
like the hay bale. But all right, are we ready to start with our top five?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like it go pretty quick. We'll just say why we like the art. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know we're kind of already digging in on time already, but yeah, let's do it. Top five alt arts.
So I don't want to say these necessarily in a specific order, because it's hard for me to choose a clear favorite. Although there is one that probably will give the nudge to, but these are all just phenomenal arts that I will buy at some point. That's pretty much a guarantee. And the first one of these five that I'll mention is the Tyranitar V Altar from Battle Styles. The first. The first All Star made in the Sword and Shield era, and how can you not love this card? You got the big bad T-Tar, the guy that's supposed to be the Godzilla Pokemon. I guess you can kind of say the badass. And there he is. He's just asleep with the T-Pig behind it, looking nervously over at T-Tar. Like, is he gonna wake? Am I gonna scare him? And it's kind of like if you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z, you know how they have like all these food and dishes and they just keep on eating and eating. That's
Yeah,
kind of what it reminds me
got
of.
those
It's like, oh, he did,
vibes.
yeah, he just pigged out. He just had a good workout. He pigged out and he ate a bunch and he fell asleep. And this card, as I mentioned before, was one of the ones I was trying to hit when I bought like 6 boosters of Battle Styles, and I never did. And that was the beginning of the end of me buying English product in bulk. And this card I absolutely love.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll rearrange my things because, yeah, I think it's such a good card that I had it in my top five. But I will say for the record, it was my number four and
Okay,
not my top
okay.
five. So, yeah, I mean, so I guess I'll go next and just show my top five, but or my number five. But yeah, the Tyranitar V, my number four. Yeah, same things you said. It's it was such. I like simple and the art on it. It's not insane. It's like simple and it's insanely cool because it's simple and just the poses and everything. You very rarely see T-Tar, happy, much less chilling and drooling. So it just has so much character in the card, and it's kind of crazy that this was like one of the first ones or the first one. What else did you have in the set? The Napoleon or
You had the
something?
Napoleon, and then you had the Ushafrus. There was technically four Ushafru alt arts. There was two Vs, and then the V Maxes.
Yeah, and I mean, come on. You got those, and you got T-Tar.
I thought the
So,
one was pretty good. One, I forget which one it was. It was like the one where it's kind of looks almost abstract. You can't even really make out what it is, but that's kind of cool because it looks almost abstract.
yeah.
But that one has I kind of lost interest in that one. I had a lot more interest when it came out, but it's kind of as other alt arts have come out, it's kind of gone down a little further for me.
Yeah. But yeah, that was my number four, and must be a pretty strong card if we got it both in our top fives.
Yep,
Wonder if we'll have something
and
else overlap. But
I can almost guarantee we probably will. Uh, so for the next one, I included the Gengar VMAX. So Gengar is one of my favorite Pokemon. It's as is a lot of people, and how can you not love this card? He got this haunted house behind him, and it's like he's just swallowing the earth, and he's just being a ghost. It's a scary ghost.
yeah, pretty solid.
Yeah, yeah. That one, that one might change in the future because I do like it, and it is Gengar, and there is a lot of geometric shapes that are kind of I like as well in it, but I can understand those just meh towards it. But it's a Gengar card. How can you not love it?
I do like that one a lot. That's why it was a runner up for me. Out of all the VMAX cards and the giant Pokemon, like it's kind of hard to tell he is giant in that picture.
Hmm.
And yeah, just a really cool artwork for sure. But yeah, he was a runner up for me. And yeah, I almost kind of want that in Japanese because what was it? The way you got it, you had to buy like a Gengar deck, and you get like a Gengar VMAX, or maybe like two Gengar VMAX in there, or maybe it's just one. But you have a chance of it being the alt art, like a 1 in 4 or 1 in 6 chance that the pre-constructed deck you bought has the alt art in it. So it was a really weird release and really cool release, and just kind of weird they did it that way.
Yeah.
But all these cards we're mentioning, I have TCG Player popped up just seeing. I don't know about.
165, yeah. I'm doing the same. 165 for near mint for Gengar.
Yeah, and trending up is what I was going to say. I mean, all these alt arts that are a couple months old or even more, seem to have a down spike, and then they're on the way back up. Like that T-Tar, August was at its peak like 74, and then it went down to 70, and now it's up just over 80. So pretty similar trajectory as I'm looking at these.
And I have to wonder what's causing some of this is people, if like a lot of people haven't learned to understand just to wait a little bit and then go back and buy it. I wonder if we're seeing with some of these earlier alt arts a desire to just go ahead and buy it, and if there's a sense of FOMO occurring with the rising price of alt arts that a lot of people are paying attention to, and suddenly people see I mean, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like people are posting like, oh, this card's been gone up 30% in the last 3 months, and then it's just kind of like, oh, are people like, okay, I've been pushing this off for 8 months. I'm gonna go ahead and buy it right now, right now, right now, and it just kind of snowballs from there. And I wonder now, Fusion Strike, you can still find that set pretty cheap, but again, it's so hard to pull these cards in English where you might as well just buy either 3 Fusion Strike EBTs or 1 booster box or 2 booster box, whatever, or just buy the card.
Yeah.
And I also wonder if some of that is people learning it's better just to buy the card. I wonder if it's a combination of all those factors that are causing these cards to go up. And I wonder how much they will continue to go up in the next year or so, if a little bit of it is FOMO or if it's actual growth.
Yeah, hard to tell. They're just trending up now. Know that for sure. But yeah, my number 5, I guess, kind of go backwards for me since we had the T-Tar in my 4 spot. But my number 5 was one that doesn't get a lot of love. It's from Evolving Skies, but it is the Dragonite V. So everyone thinks of the, evolutions, but Dragonite V is still chilling there as an alt art. It's not really much to say about the card. It's just kind of chilling up in the sky, yawning. I just really like Dragonite. And it's also like kind of hard to make Dragonite look cool, which I don't really think so, but a lot of Dragonite cards that come out, I don't really like the artwork. But when I saw this card, I was like, man, finally a Dragonite card that I really like. Like Dark Dragonite was one of the very few Dragonite cards I liked way back in Rocket. So it's cool to see a Dragonite card that's not like a super modern CGI draw up of a Dragonite V. He just has a weird pose no matter how you look at him, but this one's actually pretty cool. So
this one I do like. I do like Dragonite. But to me, it doesn't quite do it for me. It's more, I don't hate it, obviously. I like it. It's just kind of in the middle of the pack for me.
Yeah. I like the simplicity and, just the subtle character of the yawn, kind of like the T-Tar. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I like simple.
It's got the Fearos in the background, too, so that's pretty cool. But
yep.
That one's $100 now, too. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
and it's just the alt-art V, yeah. And again, this goes back to like this FOMO that we're seeing with Evolving Skies too, and like I mentioned this before in an early episode, but I was like, I think we were getting ready for the first reprint of Evolving Skies, and I was like, during that time, it was I don't know if it was on a phone call with you, but I'm pretty sure I've said it on an episode. We're going to get 2 reprints before we got the last one, and if this is any indication, 1, it's still in play for another year, which means for another World Tournament, it's going to be in rotation for another World Tournament cycle. There is going to be at least 1 more reprint, and I think it's going to be huge. I'm not saying it's going to be like, like, oh my God, it's like gigantic, but it's going to be a sizable one to bring down the prices for these cards for tournament. And I expect that to be sometime in springish, is my guess.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to tell, like how many cards in there are playable versus like how much do they want to reprint just for collectors. And if you just look at the collecting standpoint, yeah, like kind of needs another reprint. They'd make a bunch off it. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, but yeah, you think about all the sets coming out and the Scarlet and Violet lines. Like at the earliest, you're thinking maybe like starting printing in spring, like you said. But
March maybe. Like we'll see something in March, April is kind of what I'm thinking.
but you gotta think like the Pokemon Company by then are trying to hope that the hype transfers to something else. Like they're probably like, all right, guys, here, look at this new set.
VSTAR Universe.
VSTAR Universe, you know?
That's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to, I think people are going to, I don't want to say forget about Evolving Skies, but it's definitely going to eventually take a backseat. And I think one set to kind of, it's kind of similar, and I'll be bringing this up again further in the episode, is Hidden Fates. I know Hidden Fates was a special set compared to Evolving Skies, which was like a main set, if you will. But ultimately, the factors for why they reprinted Hidden Fates is the same reason why they'll multiple times is why they'll reprint Evolving Skies multiple times, because they see the prices that not only the individual cards but also the boxes are receiving, and it just came out. It's only been 14 months since it first came out. They're going to see that, like, okay, we're going to go ahead and print another round because the demand's so high, we are going to make even more money on this set, like you've said before. And I think that's why we're going to see another one. And once eventually people lost, I don't want to say lost interest in Hidden Fates, but they moved on. In fact,
Yeah.
I almost wonder if you can almost argue Evolving Skies was one of the reasons why people moved on, honestly, right?
Oh, yeah,
It
for
was,
sure.
yeah, I mean, the EV Heroes came out May. That was getting people hyped up. Hidden Fates was already kind of being more on the back burner, but the alt arts was being talked about more. And all of a sudden, people just forgot about Hidden Fates to some extent. And now you can buy PSA 10s for a fraction of the price of what they were. I remember I'd have to take a look at it, what's going for right now. But, like, for example, the Great Ninja Shiny was like $350 at one point. The last I checked, it was under 100.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I
it's just gonna
expect you'll
be.
see
Yeah, it's just gonna take the next big thing for sure.
$78 right now
Hmm.
for PSA 10 Greninja. And I know that that's not the same rarity as a lot of these alt arts, but expect to see that retrace eventually.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what that next thing could be, because it's like Charizard. What's the main thing that's like competes with Charizard? It's like things like evolutions, specifically Umbreon. You know, hard to say what that next thing is, but yeah, there's going to be another thing. And I mean, you've heard it here many times how we love Eevee Heroes, specifically those special boxes. I mean, we've been talking about it since the beginning of this podcast, how that is like the number one product of all the hype, pretty much. And here we are. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, still the best product. Although now, I think that product specifically is getting too expensive to open. The odds of you getting the Umbreon or for what the Espeon promo exclusive to that box is worth, it's like getting too ridiculous. So I'm actually selling mine right now. So
Oh, by the way, I just happen to have one for sale, guys.
if you didn't hear about me doing that the first time, hit me up.
And
So
we've mentioned our issues with sealed, modern, especially going forward. That doesn't mean if you're really interested in some sealed product that it's a bad thing to buy it for your personal collection. It's just there are a lot of red flags and a lot of factors to consider when buying sealed product for down the line. Mainly how shops and vendors are refusing to buy it, even modern sealed. And that doesn't mean you can't make money off it. It just means there's a lot of risk involved going forward. I think if you're trying to just hold it for 5 years, you're fine. 6, 7 years, you're mostly fine. It's when it starts getting to about like that 7 year to year 10 where it might start being even more risk with you already have reseal paranoia that's quite evident in this hobby. I can only imagine what it's going to be like in 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect it to get better. I'll just say that. I expect it to only get worse.
And I'll be clear, like I'm only selling mine because it's like tripling my money and it's a good time for me to sell because I'm going after other things. I would just keep that stowed away and forget about it because I still think they're a great product and those things are going to do good. Like, yeah, I think they'll retrace maybe a little bit if Evolving Skies retraces, but
Mm-hmm.
long term, I mean, even if it's 20 years down the road, people are going to want to relive the Evolving Skies EV Heroes
Absolutely.
memories. So,
It's going to be nostalgic, hardcore for this era. It's going to be EV
yeah.
Heroes is going to be the main set people remember when thinking back 10 years from now. It won't be the only one. Obviously, Hidden Fates will be in there as well, Cosmic Eclipse, even a little bit of Evolutions to an extent. But, like, when you're looking at the main set that defines the era, I think that's going to be or Evolving Skies, EV Heroes, whichever.
Yeah.
And the Star Universe, I think, might give it a little bit of a run for its money. And depending on what other cards are included, they haven't shown yet. It very well could. We've seen some things where there's already some groundwork being laid where it's already could rival it. But the biggest thing is it depends on how they transition from this set to Scarlet and Violet. Because of that transition and the hype that some people might have for Scarlet and Violet, especially if the game ends up being the best game since the blue, black, and white era, it'll be interesting to see how that hype transforms through Scarlet Violet in February when they release the first base set for that generation. But by no means will people just forget about the V-Star Universe or Evolving Skies. V-Star Universe is already looking like it's going to be a banger. And it's going to carry in the hype into the next year. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's going to be wild. But
But
yeah, Dragonite V goes underrated. That's what we're getting at.
for sure, for sure. Okay. So the next three are kind of interesting because they both have elements which make me want to have include it as like number one. But I'm just going to go ahead and start with them. The one I have listed at number three is the Galarian Moltres V. Yeah, that's right. The one with the moon in the background, and it looks like Moltres is raining down hellfire upon the land below it. And the fact that it is as big as it is, with the moon in the background, just makes it feel ominous feeling. Like it's a full moon out, and this legendary bird is out on the prowl, ready to rain hellfire.
Yeah.
That's what I look about. The contrast to it, the you could almost say the almost tribalistic art style of the trees, like the pine trees and everything, just really make this card stand out with the symmetry, with everything.
Yeah,
And it was from
it's
Chilling Pain.
the chilling pain. It's a weird pose for me. Like I like the symmetry, but I don't know. It's just my weird pose thing. But yeah, as far as the aesthetic and the colors, like I love the card just because they went with such a dark look. I'll probably end up owning this card as well. But yeah, I definitely see, what you're talking about. Definitely an awesome card. Very ominous looking for Pokemon, especially. I would consider that a runner up. So, and I love the little mountains at the bottom with the little eyeballs and stuff.
See, I thought that was trees. And then there's like
Uh,
something in the trees.
yeah, it could be. It
Or
could just be the
is
art
it
style.
flames? Yeah, or it could be flames, I guess. Like like I said, it's about to just burn down the forest or something. I don't know, but it's cool.
Yeah. I was thinking it was like mountains with eyeballs, but yeah, maybe it is trees with eyeballs or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, my next one, number 3, is purely based off the pose and like how cool the Pokemon looks. But it is the origin form Dialga V from
Mm.
Astral Radiance. So I like it. It's got a lot of colors. It's got not that much symmetry to it, but it's got like a little circular pattern in the background. He's looking at the moon
Mm-hmm.
phases. Really like the colors and the sun. And Dialga is one of my favorite from Diamond and Pearl. And I just like his pose. And
Yeah,
that's why it's my number 3.
the color's pretty cool on that one. I do enjoy the colors.
Yep.
It's got, but it's almost like for me, it's like the Dialga is being lifted up like it's the Rapture or something.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's definitely
It is
cool.
pretty
It's
cool.
gorgeous, aesthetically gorgeous. But I guess for me, like you say, you like the pose. For me, it's a little bit too rigid.
Yeah. I get what you mean there. I don't know why, but I just picture this in a CGC case because I collect a lot of newer stuff in CGC. And this one, especially with the blue tones, would look really cool in that.
Mm-hmm. I would.
So actually, the top 3 cards like are mostly based off that, like the aesthetic, and then the fact that they're in CGC cases add to that, especially my number 1. But yeah, what you got up next?
Okay, I have the RCSV from Brilliant Stars. So this one's interesting because it's got two different arts. It's got the Japanese variant and it's got the English variant. I like them both. Which one do I like better? That one's kind of hard to say. There's a little bit darker contrast on the RCSV, whereas where the other one is like during the daytime, like the Japanese one.
Yeah.
And they both have elements I really like, but this one in particular, it's like Let There Be Light. Arceus is the god of Pokemon, and there's like a lot of like Let There Be Light on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see kind of see the stars like in the background, and he's riding over the earth like he's Santa.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool one. I'm just not a big Arceus fan. I know you like him a lot, but he's another one of those Pokemon like I think are really cool, but it's hard to like look cool on a card. Like that's kind of how Dialga is for me. Like I really like Dialga, but kind of hard to look cool. He's always in that like 4-point square pose, and then that Dialga V alt art. He's in such a different pose where he looks cool. Like that's kind of how I feel about Arceus cards as well. But this one is cool though.
Yeah, whereas the other one with the I actually have been meaning to get that card, and there was it's like during the day. It's like as I said, he's like rising up. It's almost like it was this is a scene before he rose up over the earth, like he's or on the earth kind of, and he's like rising up. So like definitely this one over the other one, but they're both really really good.
Yeah. My next up is, in fact, the Vaporeon V from Evolving Skies or EV Heroes.
Oh,
Just, I like the Vs a lot more. I mean, it's a common theme. I really like the Vaporeon. This was like the first alt art that I really, really liked. You know, of course, I have Tyranitar in my top 5, but it took a while to warm up to that. But Vaporeon has always pretty much been my favorite evolution since the OG days, and had a pretty powerful one in Pokemon Go in the early days of Pokemon Go. So it kind of always stuck with me as like one of my first main Pokemon. But I just love how he's like chilling in a little water puddle, half in the water, half out. The blue aesthetic, you know, it's another reason I like that Manaphy card coming out in VSTAR Universe. It's because it's kind of got the same vibes as this card, just chilling in the water, and you can see all the details and everything. But yeah, it just captures Vaporeon in his, you know, true essence, and this in a CGC case, like looks amazing, like any blue card in a CGC case. So
Well, I'll have you know, as you're aware, I sent that in our PSA bulk order.
yeah,
Oh, wait, yeah. The VMAX is the one. Yeah, but no, the V is the one I sent. Yeah, I'm not sure if that one I pulled myself, but like that one is cool. That was the
yeah,
only alt art I pulled. So actually, I pulled two of them. I don't know what I'm talking about. The other one was the Espeon, but
yeah.
that
Both the
one is
both the ones I
pretty.
like.
I already got them sold. No, I don't, but maybe I do with you. But yeah,
Yeah,
that one
I do
that
want
one's
this one
pretty
in
cool.
CGC 9.5 though, just
Oh,
to keep my
well,
collection the same.
yeah, that one is pretty cool though. I like the Jolteon as well, so it's very similar for similar reasoning as you said as well. But
Yeah. So is this next one your last card?
the last card, I don't think you said this one
Is
yet,
it
and
gonna
at
be
this
the
point,
Moonbreon?
I think at this point you can guess I haven't included it into my honorable mentions, and it's yet to appear on this list, so there can only be one card. And is it really any surprise which card it is? It's the alternate art Umbreon VMAX from Evolving Skies. Is that really a surprise to anybody?
Lame.
Tool and and this one I mentioned just earlier this podcast, but this one the first time I saw it, I remember sending the screenshot to you and be like, "Oh my god, here we go. This art is going to go through the roof." And obviously, I couldn't pull it with the VMAX with the in the Japanese, and it was much harder to pull in the Japanese version. Just kind of like the not really too surprising, I guess. I don't know what I was expecting. I thought it might have been easier, but it was very difficult to pull. And now this one is going ham in the market. And I think there's a lot of FOMO involved with this card right now. I understand why. The card is absolutely immaculate. It is the defining card of this generation. It will be the card that people remember when they think of this era. And it will be like that for a long, long time, perhaps forever. It has already reached, I don't want to say it's reached legendary status, but it's definitely reached A status. And with the amount of people that are just concerned about opening product from the shelves, this will be their chase card. This will be their grail to a lot of people, and in a 10 especially. And this card will only continue to gain people that enjoy it and love it. And as far as why I like it, it has such homages to Starry Night. And it's the color, it's the lighting of it all. And Starry Night to me is just an awesome painting, and it has a lot of the same vibes. And now to me, the whole thing, the thing with this one too is like you mentioned, like how it's big and all, but the way this card is made, you can't really tell that it's huge, can you? I don't
Yeah,
think you.
I mean
I mean,
he's standing on a building.
but how? I mean, that could be a smaller. That could be like a. I mean, it could be a smaller peak. I mean, I know there's like windows in it, but like it's not as
Yeah,
gigantic. It's not as noticeable. I'll say that based off of, I guess, what's the word? Perspective. Based on your perspective, you can argue like how big is it. But anyways, that's kind of besides the point. To
yeah.
me,
I
this
think I
card
think it's like looks bigger than most because of he's on top
really.
of the building. Yeah,
See, to me, it depends on how you want to see that building. Like, is it like he's like right close up to it? Like, yes, it's bigger, but it's not necessarily massive. I don't know. And I know some people have mixed opinions on this card, but I mentioned before I will own this card one day. It's obviously not on the priority, especially right now with FOMO taking it to the damn moon, with people spending like $1,500 on this card, and it's gone up what since September. It was what was it 600 raw near mint, something like that back September at the KCCon, and it went up like $120 in the last 2 weeks before that. So in the last 2 months, it's gone up quite a bit, especially in a 10.
yeah. It's still trickling up too. I like the card. I would probably own it in Japanese, but the Japanese one is even more expensive.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'd like it one day, but definitely not in any rush. I don't want the 10, I just
Nope.
want the 9. So I would think that would be a lot easier to come by since the 10s are so, like, it's definitely an easy grade. It's on the Japanese side. So,
Well, it's funny, like the English one has like an 80% 10 rate. Now there is the bulk, since the bulk just opened up, that can be partially explained because people are we're spending 50 to $100 a card to grade it. So if they're going to send it in, they're going to make sure it's going to be a 10 or close to it. And I think that's why you see the percentage. I'm not saying that it won't be a high percentage because it is modern. I'm just saying that leads to the very, very ridiculously high percentage that we have now. I think you're going to see it closer as time goes by for the next couple of years or so. I think you're going to see it fall closer to around 65, 70% 10 rate, approximately. Like we've
yeah.
seen with other cards. I think that's pretty fair estimate. As basically people will continue sending in cards that they think could have like a 50-50 shot at 10 and it gets a 9 or whatever. But I'll definitely see that slip. And I'll talk about this in the future a little bit, why I think this one could or will retrace, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool one though. I like the OG Moonbreon from Neo a lot more, as I've mentioned many times, but I guess it is what it is. But my number one card, which may have caught on earlier, but it is the Celebi V alt art from Fusion Strike. It was also I think, buy a box promo on the Japanese side. That is the one I actually have in a CGC 9.5. So I love the look of that. It's one of those alt art cards that I really liked. Like you said, it's got the snowy background. He's almost bringing life to him. He's like enchanting a tree to bring, springtime. There's a giant tree in the background that looks pretty cool. But I mean, this is when I got this card, just how much it pops. I don't know about the English one, but the Japanese one, especially in the CGC case, I mean, it looks amazing. And this has everything going for it with the pose, the landscape, the texture of the card, and yeah, it sold me for sure on the alt arts. It's one I always kind of had my mind on. It was kind of like the Vaporeon, just really caught my eye early. But I guess that pretty much wraps us up, though, for our top 5, huh?
Yes, it does. That was a pretty fun episode, though.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, let us know, guys, in the bottom on the description of the podcast or video. We'll have all these cards linked. Probably the TCG player link. But we will have a tier maker down there as well if you want to rate your own and let us know. So it would be pretty cool to know if you guys align stuff up like we do. But with that, let's go ahead and wrap this episode up with some quick questions. So what you got for us?
So for this question, it's a fitting question for what we discussed so far, is where will the Moonbreon end up in 2 years? Where will it go? Or we'll say it could be 2 and 5 years. We'll say relatively short term window, but next 2 and 5 years.
All right, so 2 years. I'm thinking, worst case scenario, we don't get a reprint. I think it's still going to come down some. I think it might settle at like, it's already what, 1,500? I think it's for sure going to come back to like 1,200, maybe even 1,000 if like times continue to get tough. But that's kind of where I see. I see it kind of cooling down, but still being very expensive. And, at least prices what they were before the reprint. For 5 years, I think they could be back at what they are now if, it continues, if there's not another product that really rivals Evolving Skies or Eevee Heroes. I think it could be right back there. It'll pull back no matter what, I think,
Hmm.
especially if there's a reprint, but I think it'll slowly tick up. But with 5 years, I still think that's pretty short for this card because, I mean, there's just so many. Like, given the amount of product printed today, plus the reprint, plus, the Charizard EPC, it's got Evolving Skies packs in there. It's only three of them, but it's got them. Plus the potential for another reprint. I mean, it could come down and stagnate or even dwindle down, but it'll always be a pretty pricey card, especially when people look back at the alt art cards. And yeah, it's gonna be special, but it's hard to tell like where it's gonna end up.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think there is definitely going to be a retrace in terms of price. Right now, they're in bids for 1,500, and I don't think now that there is definitely FOMO because it's still in print, but that price isn't as crazy as I thought it might be, and here's why. I do believe it's going to go back down around 1,000 and a 10, even lower potentially in the next year. But I could see it being the price it is now in 2 years. I can see that, and here's why. Because an example of the Sun and Moon era, when the top cards in the Sun and Moon era, I would say was the shiny Charizard from Hidden Fates. Would you agree?
Yeah,
In terms of set cards, that's I don't know if it's the defining one from that era, but it's definitely one of them. I would say
yeah, it's up
definitely one of
there.
the most. It's definitely up there. Then you got the fact that it's a Charizard. So those are going for like 750 or so and a 10. Now the pull rates is significantly different between the Charizard and the Umbreon. You're talking about like 1 in 1,500, I think, with the Umbreon approximately, and you're talking like 1 in 400 with the Charizard. However, Evolving Skies has been printed and will be printed significantly more than Hidden Fates. So that's another factor to consider. But I say about times two or so what it is now from what the Charizard V is now because of the different rarity.
Yeah,
I think that between the next 2 and 5 years, I think you're talking between $1,500 and $2,000 and a 10. I don't think that's crazy to say, even if other people move on. I think that's honestly a pretty fair estimate. But I expect it to go around 1,000 or below within the next 12 to 15 months. Now, this one's kind of hard to predict because every time you have FOMO and social media hype involved, there's a lot of risk factors associated with it. And that will include its long-term value as well. Not to say that this card won't go up in value in the future. It's just there's a lot of issues, a lot of lists and potentially red flags you can say that might make it subject to hypes. And I think we're seeing that already. And we've said before how this era will have a lot of nostalgia. So I think this card will be prone to a lot of ebb and flows,
yeah, for
which
sure.
which isn't unheard of in the hobby. You can argue that the Charizard is like that as well. The base set Charizard, this is first edition, is kind of has ebb and flows too. And it's a similar thing. So that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just it makes it difficult to predict what it could be in 2 to 5 years. And then you have another X factor and how many people are keeping product sealed. Like you have people consuming and opening a lot of progress right now, and there's going to be so many people selling EV Hero or Evolving Skies boxes for the next couple of years, 5 years, that there's going to be a steady stream. I think it'll be interesting to see about 6 months from now, after a lot of people have gotten their Bolt cards back, what it will be with that card. I think if you're going to buy this card, I think potentially next spring would be a good time to buy it. Around the time when they have the next reprint. Maybe a little before, because if it's a situation where they do a reprint and it's consumed immediately by the hobby and it doesn't do much to the grade, it's going to send this card soaring again. So it'll be interesting to, like, don't fall into FOMO. Like, this card isn't going to the stratosphere, okay? This card isn't going to $5,000 in its hand anytime soon. I just don't think it is. It's going to be staying around what it is now at most, to maybe 2,000 in the next 5 years. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I don't know, already in the stratosphere, but
yeah,
that's kind of why I think it might be pulled back, but maybe be about the same in that time frame. But we'll see. Well, my question kind of brings it back to Neo. Specifically, with us both picking up Neo Hollows here recently, where do you see the future of those, I guess, was kind of the twist on the question, but you answered that a little bit early on. But do you think, like, when will they be dried up, essentially? I'm already kind of experiencing that now with, like, finding light play, like you said. It's just becoming harder and harder, especially now because people's light plate is, like, borderline damage sometimes. Yeah. It was always kind of tricky to find, real light play or real mint, because a lot of people's version of that is a lot different, mostly poor if you're looking on eBay. People talk up their own cards, obviously, but it's becoming a challenge to find some. I mean, you really got to dig or settle for a little less. I mean, the farther you get in Neo, Neo Rev, Neo Destiny, and the E-Series Hollows. I mean, a lot of people love Neo, probably more so than the E-Series. The E-Series is just kind of similarly priced because of the rarity. But Neo is definitely printed more, I think. But, people consider Neo as, like, classic sets. So I don't know. What do you think the growth is on those, like, Neo Hollows specifically? Because I, for one, think, they didn't really see the insane hype during the hype like other cards did. The Lugia, kind of. But
the T17 did a little bit too. Same with the Ho-Oh, but yeah.
Like the majority of, like, the midline Hollows didn't really see to the moon prices, but they didn't go up as much, but they didn't come down as much either. They've really been steady. And I mean, they're still, in the later Neo sets, $20 to $50 minimum. Most cases for good looking cards, you're paying $50 to $150.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think about that?
So, I kind of said this before. I noticed that there was, especially in Destiny, there's quite a bit of disparity when it comes to the amount of sellers for, say, something like Neo Genesis or Neo Discovery, and compare it to Neo Destiny. So this is something that I mentioned before. I spent about 8 hours or so dealing with just getting a lot of these Hollows and just doing the math. So this is Neo Discovery. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 of the 17 Hollows I need, and I'm talking lightly played condition. That cost me 4 to 400 in lightly played condition, and I rounded up. So it could even be done for under 400. So you're talking about the whole set is like, and the Hollows is less than 600 in the Hollows, maybe 800 overall for this set, approximately. Now, that continues to increase. I have 12 Hollows, and I know it's 10 Hollows I need, which includes the Ho-Oh, the Neo Revelation, but not, it's missing the Shining Gyarados in lightly played. Actually, the Shining Gyarados was in moderately played, not even lightly played. How about lightly played? Tag on there 150. It's at 730. So you're talking about 12, 1300 for that set. Now let's get to Neo Destiny. I'm missing basically every single Hollow, and I'm missing all the Shinings. 5,000. Or not 5,000, excuse me. 2,600.
Mm-hmm.
2,600 for Neo Destiny. And that didn't include about 70 cards in the set that I already bought. That was another 350 or 400. So you're talking about approximately a $3,000 set when you get to Neo Destiny. Now, I'm not saying the Shinings are going to double immediately, but they will also naturally increase. I mean, you're talking about with these Hollows. If you look at the Hollows, it's kind of interesting in Neo Destiny because I only have 2 of them in lightly played that are 100 plus. That's the Light Arcanine and the Light Dragonite. And don't you find that kind of peculiar? That some of the, like the Dark Gengar especially, Dark
Yeah.
Espeon, Dark Houndoom, Dark T-Tar, you have some of the best artwork in the entire Pokemon series is in this set, in my opinion.
And some of the most beloved Pokemon. Granted, they only had 2 gens to pick from, but, first and second gen is like 90% of old school collectors' favorites. So definitely a win-win.
You're talking 865 for the Hollows. The parameters are set for a lot of these Hollows, not all of them obviously, because like the Light Azrael is only $8, the Miracle Energy is only $11. Like some of these are really really cheap in terms of the Hollows, but the vast majority are 30 up, and the majority are in like the $40 to $50 range. Now it doesn't really take too much to get the card from $50 to $100, and $100 to $150 to $200. It doesn't take that much. It really doesn't. You have the right. If there is just not that many lightly played on the market, you can easily ask for that. And there's a lot of situations where Neo Destiny in the next couple of years could double in price in lightly played. And I don't think that's, at least when it comes to the Hollows. I'll say when it comes to the Hollows.
True light played.
Yeah. When it comes to the Hollows, I could see it doubling within the next couple of years. And you're talking about cards that right now are 20 years old. So in 2 years, you're talking 22 years old. It's going to be, and like most people are out of the hobby by then from our generation. And again, these are some of the best art in the Neo series and in all of WotC. And there's a lot of factors that I feel like people aren't talking about when it comes to vintage, especially Neo Destiny, that some of the lightly played, especially near mint, are disappearing from the market. In fact, I recently kind of looked for Shadowless. I know I've mentioned this before on another podcast, how I couldn't find Shadowless on TCG Player. Well, don't be surprised if you see something similar when it comes to Neo Destiny in the next 5 years. I'm not saying it'll be completely gone from TCG Player because it's not completely, Shadowless isn't completely gone from TCG Player. They'll still have the Shadowless feature on TCG Player, but when you click on the actual cards, it's all unlimited pretty much, unlimited or first edition. And if it's first edition, it's kind of rare in between, and a lot of it's like damage or heavily played or something like that. Like the factions are, it's like you can kind of see things being laid, the groundwork being laid to see it's going to be hard to collect this set going forward here in a few years.
Yeah, I think so too. If the times turn and there's any subtle uptick or confidence in people spending money again. Not that that's a problem now, but if it gets any more increased or excitement for the hobby comes back in vintage, obviously modern's not having the problem, but when vintage surges a little again, Neo is going to be on the radar. We were talking about it. We were surprised that it didn't go as crazy as it had been, but I think the old stuff like base set and everything got so blown out of proportion that it was kind of the sneaky play. Had some solid growth and some solid decline as well, but a healthy growth, a more healthy growth, and more healthy decline. So it's really in a good spot. I mean, same can be said for, I like my gold stars, but maybe the next hype, Neo will be the more focus, and then maybe the gold stars or Gen 3 will kind of be, what Neo did the first time around. And then the next time after that, maybe Gen 3 will really take off. So it's like a weird delay because that's naturally how people collect. I think people right now are going after, a lot of cheaper things that they just enjoy. The hype isn't there for the older stuff, but people still want to collect them, and it's going to be a sneaky climb and a pretty good play. But I guess that'll pretty much wrap up this episode.
Oh yeah, I just want to say one more thing to reiterate. So yeah, right now, as I said, the set is about $3,000. Neo Destiny is in lightly played. But just kind of remember that about $3K or so in lightly played in November of 2022. I'm curious. Actually, that's more. Some of the shinings were moderately played. Actually, I take that back. Some of the shinings were moderately played, and so you're really talking about maybe 3,500 right now in November of 2022. I'm curious to see how expensive that set will be in 5 years. Will it be 6,000 to 7,000? I don't think it's that crazy to think that it will be.
Yeah. We will see. I do want to leave y'all with a bit of spicy news that we won't talk about due to time constraints, but maybe I'll have a little video on it this week. But PSA made a post 2 hours ago. What do you think it has to deal with?
Well, we didn't even mention the news that was brewing over the whole Ludkins and PSA fiasco. We mentioned before how we thought there's something weird going on with Ludkins or PSA or one of the two, and we have information which might support one of our original theories that we mentioned was going on, which led to a delay in our order that took 24 months or whatever it was to finally receive.
Yeah, well, let's just say our rumors are true. And PSA, effective immediately, PSA is discontinuing its relationship with Ludkins Collectables. For a full statement, please see our website.
Wow.
It is... It's quite the statement.
Yeah,
they essentially... you have to go check it out. But here's one little sentence from it. PSA... Even though PSA has not been paid by Ludkins, all cards that have been received by PSA have been graded and are in PSA's possession. Furthermore, PSA offered to return the cards to Ludkins despite lack of payment, so that Ludkins could return the cards to their customers, which unfortunately was met with resistance. So it goes into quite the detail. And on Ludkins' Facebook page, they have an even longer statement, boo-hooing essentially. But it's quite the bomb drop here at the end of the episode, but I just saw it when I was kind of scrolling for stuff we might mention for next time.
Well, but I don't think I said this on the episode where we talked about PSA, but I mentioned over a phone call that I wonder if we should bring in litigation. Like, I even brought up the words class action lawsuit for lost profits because of the delay of shipment. Because I mentioned this in a PSA, so I lost over $1,000 easy in lost profits, and compared if we would have gotten them in May. And if we would have gotten them even 6 months before that, you're talking like 2,500, 3,000, if not more in profits. Now imagine the people that had even more cards and better cards. We're talking thousands of dollars. I think there's grounds here for a class action lawsuit. I really do. I'm no lawyer, but there's definitely something afloat, and we need to get in on that, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate. If you want to see the whole thing, you have to go check that out. I'm sure we'll talk about it next time. It'll be 2 weeks from now, but, we'll have all the information there and all the reactions and stuff. So it'll be good to touch on. Like I said, I might do a separate video on it or something, but Yeah, I mean, essentially, our cards with the cert numbers were proven to be graded much earlier than we received them. And if it's a matter of them just not paying PSA to get them back, and especially when PSA offered just to send them, it's like, hey, that's not good. And now if people know that, yeah, there's definitely some lost profit there. It's like no doubt. And seems like they could pretty much have proof like when the cards are graded. So I wouldn't be surprised if something happens with this, and it's kind of scary if you still have cards out there, but thankfully ours are done with. I mean, now that the ties are cut, I mean, Ludkins' post was like 10 minutes ago. So
They're going to declare bankruptcy is what
yeah,
their
it's like
next play.
the problem is like they didn't have the money. They put the money in the business, which yeah, it's good, but
They probably expanded too soon, gave people too high of raises immediately, which I'm pro, like I'm for raises obviously, but like if you're giving everybody $2 raises and without thinking keep thinking that this money is going to keep on going in, then you're not managing it properly. You should have given people raises 6 months to a year after the fact,
yeah.
after you can afford all these raises. And I'm sure some of it was expansion. I'm also sure some of it was they started trying to quote unquote invest in cards, and they bought high in some cases. I'm sure it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and they had all these orders going out, money was going in, then PSA shut down, and then they didn't have money, and now the bill's due. So, yep, check that out, guys. It's going to be a weird one. We'll give you a full recap when it's nice and drawn out 2 weeks from now, maybe. But we better get out of here, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks for listening.
Can't wait till next time. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
See you.